Okay, now that we're done with our first day assignments, you have some idea about what to expect for the course. I want to take some time and introduce chapter 1 to you, or section 1 to you. But first, I want to make sure I acknowledge your contribution so far. I hope you get a chance to read each other's get to know you posts, so you can get an idea of who you're working with, who your peers are. A very diverse group. I appreciate learning about you a little bit, your advice that you're sharing. There's always something new that I take away from your posts. And again, I just want to acknowledge those who are out there working, not just students. I'm going to do again my best to support you, and I hope that you guys take time to support each other, especially when it comes to those discussion posts where you're going to help each other with the work. Just acknowledge that everyone is doing their best here. Some of you are working full time. Some of you are parents. Some of you are working 2 jobs part time. I have a lot going on, and so just keep that in mind when you're doing your work with each other. Next, I want to go ahead now and give you an idea of what you're going to learn in section 1. So for the first section here, we're going to be looking at a few things within statistics. We're going to go over those general terms. But more importantly, I think what you want to take away is, again, this idea of what is statistics, why we care to study statistics, right, and how we do it. That's pretty much what section 1 is about. And again, you've heard me in a couple of videos already kind of talk about how I think and what is important about statistics, and it really is connected to statistical thinking, right? You're not going to remember all the moves. Some of you will need to go on and do another stats class. Many of you will, especially your psychology and some other professions that many of you are pursuing. We'll need another statistics class. But the fundamental thing you're going to take away is the forms of thinking that come with that, right? And so this first section introduces you to this idea, and then it introduces you to how we do it, right? And so one of the first ways we go about thinking about statistics is through asking questions and connecting those to claims, right? People are making claims. I just wanted to show you a couple of things to get you thinking about this first section. And here is an article I got this morning from, I think it's Washington Post. And there's tons of claims in here, right? From the beginning here, coronavirus recommendations being ignored. That's a claim. How do we know that's correct? What evidence do we have to say that's true? Coronavirus infections continue to rise in many parts, right? And so that's kind of what's causing many kind of things to go on, despite that we're opening things up, whatever that means, right? And so if you look at some of these things, I'll highlight a couple of these things here, right? People here's another claim, right? They either think that they're either just over it, or they come to believe it's a phony pandemic, right? Based on their personal based on personal things, right? Or even political things. But that's a claim. How do we know these things are true, right? Continue on throughout this, right? Public health departments are facing lawsuits, which that's not a claim, that's a truth. There was another one here. In terms of other claims, right? Health department officials and staff have been physically and politically scapegoated. Now, how do we know that's true? Again, I'm not saying what is true, what's not true. I'm just giving you a hint of what goes on in our world, right? What we were while we were coping with it now, this is not sustainable in the long term. Again, that's a claim. And they may have the evidence, but that's all I want you to start to think about is, what is this evidence, right? And so, again, be critical, be vigilant of how you consume data and claims, right? I support the idea it's time to try to get people out in the workplaces and public spaces, but let's do it with some utmost care, right? Thinking about that's again a claim. How do we go about doing that? Again, comes back to what evidence do we have to make certain decisions. Another thing that they're going to think about in this section is how we actually do data collection, and one is through sampling, right? And let me show you something from my Twitter feed here that came up here. Let me zoom in a little bit. I'm increasingly convinced there's something, right? Here's another claim, not right about the data. Can cases steadily tend up with death decreasing over a 2-month time? This is California. That's us. And so if you look carefully, the blue is positive cases, and then the red is deaths. So we are increasing, right? in terms of the number of positive cases per 10,000 people, right? You'll see it's upward. It's still continuing. That's one of the concerns we have in California, Orange County, LA County, right? They're just at different curves. But look at the death rate. It's the one in red here. It's pretty much leveled off. So even though we have more cases, our death rate has stayed the same. What is causing that, right? And that was the statement made here in this post here, right? And one thing we learn about is how we collect data. So how was this data collected? Who's the sample? And so that's why this was interesting to me, because you can see one person's explanation here, right? This is selection bias 101, meaning that early on there were more deaths per early on there were more deaths. The people who were being diagnosed and dying were the people who were already sick right early on. And so now what's happened is it's potentially that we have a different group of people, sorry about that, a different group of people who's getting sick, right? And maybe it's younger people and that's why they're not dying, but we're getting more cases about that. So I wanted to again show you that there. And then lastly, in this section here, we're going to be taking a look at some of the graphs, tables, frequencies. And this is from Orange County. This is the data from Orange County. This is what I just pulled out from yesterday. And you can see, right, these types of data being the frequency or the relative frequencies turn into percents. And this is the death by age in Orange County. You can see a higher frequency occurs in these older ages, right? And no one under 24 has passed away. And so that's why, again, people are making claims about how younger people don't care about it as much because they're not dying. And maybe that's okay to do, right? And there could be some social strategy of what we do. Maybe we send you guys out, and anyone under 24, you go out and work, right, without fear. It's just the older ones, people like me in this higher age bracket, that needs to be safer. Again, this is the stuff we're learning. You can see here's some more data. This is, again, in terms of how it's being presented to you here, cases by age, and then that turns into graphs, which we start to talk about in section 2. But again, we're looking at relative frequencies or percent frequency charts. There's not like on tables. I just want to make sure, again, you got a short introduction of what Unit 1 is. This is what we're talking about, how it applies to our world. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here. Again, Santa Ana has the highest number of cases, and per capita you can see very high. Orange County overall is 20. There was another one, Anaheim has high rates also, Garden Grove and so forth. And again, that leads to other questions. Think about other types of questions that we have. I guess that's it. Hopefully, again, you get a chance to get started right away to get a sense of how much work this class is going to be. And the class will escalate, right? This will be stuff early on that you've seen before, and then we'll start challenging you later on. But that's it. Thank you, guys.